You're watching Guadalupe Media TV, and I'm Meliton Awil, your host to The Catholic Man's Journey. With me, I have Paul Rodriguez on my left and Jason De Ocampo on my right. And I'm going to ask Jason to read a short Bible passage.
Okay, our chosen reading for today is from the book of Sirach, chapter 18, verses 27 to 33. The wise are discreet in all things. Where sin is rife, they keep themselves from wrongdoing. Every wise person teaches wisdom, and those who know her declare her praise. Those skilled in words become wise themselves, and pour forth apt proverbs. Do not let your passions be your guide, but keep your desires in check. If you allow yourself to satisfy your passions, they will make you the laughingstock of your enemies. Take no pleasure in too much luxury, which brings on poverty redoubled. Do not become a glutton and a drunkard with nothing in your purse. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Thank you, Jason. The theme of our discussions today are habits and the virtuous life. And I'm going to ask Paul Rodriguez to read a short story.
Matt was an extrovert and liked to socialize with friends and family. He was funny, interesting, and always the life of the party, especially after a few beers. At one recent party, there was no alcohol. On their way home that night, Matt told his wife, Carol, "That was the most boring party I've ever been to." "I'm not surprised," Carol replied. "You just can't seem to relax without a few drinks, can you?" Carol's response took Matt by surprise, and he started to think about what she had said. He realized that his good times depended too much on alcohol. He would have to learn to relax and enjoy people without the crutch of alcohol.
So, what do habits have to do with living a virtuous life?
They have much to do with living a virtuous life. There is a saying, I don't really know where it came from, but it's an old saying that we're creatures of habit. In other words, from the time we wake until the time we go to sleep, some action or other that we do has become a habit. We do it over and over again. A habit is something an act we do self-consciously, like brushing your teeth, or combing your hair, or going to the bathroom. These are all habits that we form, and we do them automatically. The secret of life, of a better life and a virtuous life, is to substitute virtues for habits. A virtue is a kind of habit. It's a habit which seeks, a virtue is a habit which seeks the good, the true, or the beautiful. So instead of slurping your soup because you have no control of your appetite, you lift up your heart and mind and thank God for a meal, and then you slow down and think that what you're doing is supposed to give glory to God, not annoy your fellow man by your slurping noise.
Well, I suppose that the habits that we have are obviously a link to the type of life that we lead, whether it's virtuous or not. And I'm thinking here that a person who is a habitual drunkard, who drinks a lot of liquor, I don't think that one can say that he's living a virtuous life. or if somebody, smokes a lot of marijuana, that type of thing, those are bad habits, and when one has these type of habits, one is not leading a virtuous life. Actually, to lead a virtuous life, one would have to change one's habits. One would have to stop drinking. Probably one would stop going around doing things that we're not supposed to do. So it does have a lot to do with the type of life that we lead, whether it's virtuous or not. What do you say to that, Jason?
I 100% agree with that, and like what Paul said earlier, I think if you change those habits, and replace them with virtuous habits, then you're set. Especially if you're a Catholic trying to live a moral life, obviously you can't go around, say, and consuming too much alcohol and then acting foolish after a night of drinking. You know what I mean? And we're all called to be, as Catholics, we're called to be salt of the earth and light of the world. You cannot be salt of the earth and light of the world if you're seen publicly intoxicated or acting foolish or something like that. So yes, habits have a lot to do with living a virtuous life. You do have to change it for.
Yeah, because on the other hand, we spoke about a person that drinks too much, but on the other hand, a virtuous man would probably, instead of frequenting bars and clubs, he would be frequenting the church. He would go to church on a regular basis, to mass. He would go to confession from time to time. He would go to communion. He's a regular church goer. And, he would help his neighbor in whatever way he can. He would be leading a virtuous life that way.
Yeah, but I would never try to make people believe that the virtuous life forbids you from taking any alcoholic beverage at any time in whatever quantity, because I look at the example set by Jesus. He went to a wedding, the wedding feast of Cana, and they ran out of wine, and his mother, feeling concerned for the people who are getting married and the whole family, and not wanting them to feel disgrace because they ran out of wine, asked Jesus to do something about the fact that the wine had run out. And Jesus did. Jesus did it fully knowing, and being God, knowing that one or two people would probably abuse the good wine, but also knowing that some people, maybe the vast majority of people, would just use it as a way of livening up the party. I can drink enormous amounts of liquor. I very, very, very rarely ever got drunk, but I still enjoy a beer here and there, and I think it's a virtuous thing to be able to take a drink of liquor, whatever the kind, depending on your taste, and enjoying it and praising God and being more social with your friends and your family.
Yes, absolutely. We Catholics do not believe that drinking per se, since we're talking about drinking, is a sin. But it's how much of it you drink.
Correct.
So when we spoke about drinking, I was thinking about the people that abuse excessive drinking.
Yeah.
And so one gets drunk. And so I'm not talking about drinking. I mean, of course you can have you're gonna have a drink, at meal times or some other social occasion. It is a good thing to do that. Actually, the Pope few days ago, in one of his homilies that he gave, he says precisely that wine is a good thing when you use it in the right way.
As a matter of fact, in some countries, Latin countries, I'm told that instead of drinking water, they'll have a drink of wine at most meals, So
in Europe, they don't drink water there.
The monks actually over the centuries, they have perfected the art of brewing beer, and they taught that to the world. And I read something that Pope Benedict, of course, being German, he likes beer. It's just a matter of taking something in moderation. I think God designed our body to take everything in moderation, because even water, if you take too much, there's water intoxication. You take too much sugar, it's bad for you. You take too much of this, it's bad for you. Everything in moderation.
Let's go on to the next question. Describe some personal habits that would characterize your style of behavior. How do they relate to the human virtues spoken of in the Catechism?
Good question, and I think gives us an opportunity to look at what we Catholics call the cardinal virtues, which are prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance. Temperance you referred to just now, that when you take a drink of beer or wine or whatever, or even rum, you take one drink because it's good for digesting, helping you to digest your food. That is the virtue of temperance. Another aspect of temperance, and this might apply not so much to us men, but to women, to our wives and daughters and granddaughters, to avoid showing too much flesh. I think it can be a big source of temptation for men when women expose too much of the parts of their body that are more properly private, right? The upper part of the body and the lower part of their body, it's modesty we call it the virtue of modesty, when a woman dresses in such a way that, she protects from the sight of those who would lust parts of their body that would easily tempt a man to lust.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was thinking that, it says describe personal habits that would characterize the style of behavior. Well, what comes to my mind is that your style of behavior, whatever one does or does not do, will tell whether a person is virtuous or not. For instance, if a man frequents bars and nightclubs and places like that, it will tell what sort of person that is. Well, it's a person who abstains from those places, stays away from those places, and on the other hand, frequents the church. He goes to Mass on a regular basis and tries to help other people. That will also tell what sort of a person that is. So you'll be able to distinguish between a virtuous and a non-virtuous person. What do you think?
Yes, of course. Like what you said, if a person goes to church regularly, that's a habit that person formed. Then you have that person has that virtue of fortitude, because by going to church, you're telling yourself, this is what I have to do, this is my obligation, hence this is where I'm headed. You form that habit for you to live a good life. You know, instead of like what you said, frequenting bars or something like that.
You know, in this age though of more abundance, you have bars in your home, television sets in your home. Some people have a television set in every single room. Now, one of the ways that people entertain themselves is to watching movies and sometimes pornography. That plays a big part in the lives of some men. And the thing, so they make what is really could be a wholesome form of entertainment, watching a good movie with your family at home. They have a special TV where they watch pornography.
Well, I think at this point we need to take a break. So let's take a break and we'll come back shortly. Please don't go away. Welcome back to the Catholic Man's Journey. And we're discussing habits and the virtuous life. Can we list habits that are detrimental to living a Christian life? And what are their specific dangers?
What I was leading up to from the last segment is that, you know, we can take something that is probably originally intended to be wholesome, watching a movie with your family, but the same instrument that is used to show that movie, you can turn into something that is the cause of sin to you. Mm-hmm. Instead of watching a good wholesome movie, a family, you watch pornography. And this, understand, is a common thing that happens in our society today. And the solution to that is just stop watching that type of movie. Watch things that are wholesome. Look at the news. There are dangers in watching even what would normally be regarded as innocent, watching the news, you know, the world news, the local news. There are other temptations that come from watching, just saying you're going to watch all news. I mean, the treatment of murder in our society, I think, where they show the blood and so on, I think it's so gross now that, you know, really, it makes me feel that we need some form of censorship. Of course, the best form of censorship, if you are watching a program and something comes up that you think is unwholesome, you turn it off or change the channel. And that's what I do. I hardly watch local news because the grotesqueness of the murders that are committed and other things. The carnival season is coming up, and you know, lots of young people gravitate around watching, whole families there. On that day they go to watch the carnival, and I don't watch it because the dancing is too overtly sexual, and I think that's a temptation for me. I don't watch that sort of thing. But I have to confess that the carnival was brought to Belize by Henry Young and myself. I was mayor of Belize City 74 to 80, and it was that during that time. When we brought the carnival to Belize, however, we intended it to be, and actually it was for a period of time, like the Rose Parade in California on New Year's Day. It was a cultural event where floats were decorated with flowers and other plant life, and you know, it was very wholesome, but I'm afraid it has
it has evolved into something.
I don't watch it at all.
Typical of what human beings do. They spoil things.
Well, I have a perfect example with this number 3 question, a habit that's detrimental to living a Christian life. I remember one time, I was still living in the Philippines. It was my birthday and we were preparing for a party. Now in Philippine culture, when you preparing for a party, it's a big feast, no? So we started cooking from early on in the day. But of course, while cooking, we were taking a few drinks. But the problem was it got out of hand that I had too much to drink. So I went home to take a shower, but I was too drunk. I fell asleep. So I missed my own party because I was already too drunk to go to the party, because we've been drinking pretty much the whole day, you know, and you know, that's unfortunate that, you know, that habit that enables you to do that. You see, it's something that's supposed to be a celebratory, but it turned out to be a disaster.
Well, actually, the next question asks, what concrete techniques can you use to break bad habits?
Well, you know, it depends on the habit. Like I was referring to television. The way to break the bad habits related to the viewing of television is just to turn the darn thing off or to change the channel. But there are other remedies. One of the things that we need to do is to develop in our families other ways of entertaining ourselves. You know, there was a time when, now it's kind of difficult because of the crime and because people fear to go out and probably expose themselves to danger. We don't go use our parks as much as we need to, as much as we used to. I hardly leave my house at night nowadays because, you know, people are concerned if you go out, you will be mugged or you will be hurt. So people are afraid to go out, but we need to change our habit from just sitting in our parlors and watching television. We need to do other things. One of the good things that we need to do is to turn some of that, at least a part of that time that we dedicate to watching TV, to saying the rosary or doing scripture reading.
Actually, that I agree with that. In other words, when you say, well, just stop doing it, it's easy to say, stop doing it, but you know, people can't. They find it almost impossible to stop doing some things. You know, a person who's a habitual drinker, he just can't stop it. In other words, he can't. A person who's involved in these sexual things, sometimes he finds it almost impossible to stop. So it's not a question of just stopping. It needs something more, or it needs something more to give you that power to be able to stop it, to be able to say no. And for me, the best thing is prayer. Because we as human beings do not have the power to be able to stop it. But when we ask God to help us, well, He's almighty and He has the power and He's going to help us. I mean, I have you know, I can say that from personal experience. I, for many, many years, I was a very hard drinker. And I used to do things that I'm ashamed now, and I wish I hadn't done them. But I did them. And I remember many a time I used to say to myself, I gotta stop. I'm not gonna continue doing this thing. I'm gonna stop. And I really wanted to stop, but I just couldn't. And it was not until one day I was invited to go out and spend a weekend at one of our keys, at Key Chapel. And they had a bunch of people from the United States who came down, the Full Gospel Businessman Fellowship. They were members of this Christian men's organization. And I remember that, and of course, I have to have the willingness and the desire to change my life, because if I didn't have the desire or willingness to change my life, then it probably just wouldn't have worked, because God has given us a free will, and He won't take away the free will from us. So if we still want to do it, He will, He will let us do it. But I guess that in my case, I wanted to stop, but I couldn't stop. Actually, as the Bible says, the sinner is a slave to sin. So when you're a slave to something, you're not doing your own will, but you're doing, you're a slave to whatever addiction or whatever controls you. And so I was controlled by alcohol. And the only way I could get out of that was through prayer. And I remember when they prayed for me, something tremendous happened. And I really had the desire to change. They prayed for me, and I stopped just like that. One day I was drinking up to that point, and from that point I stopped.
Well, actually, Jason, I think Mel is right, and the power of prayer, because of my past life, because of my training. Maybe I mentioned this before. I was in the seminary for 8 years. And I mean, the training you receive in a Jesuit seminary is, amazing, first class. You become like, the moment I put on the novice's cassock, like something clicked in my mind, in my heart, in my soul. Embrace excellence. That is what you do when you decide to lead a virtuous life. You embrace excellence. And that training for 8 years, has become a part of me. But unfortunately, I don't realize that that decision itself is a prayer, was a prayer where I'm making myself open to God, to be influenced by His grace. And that has carried on into the rest of my life where, it is so true that when I have prayed to get rid of a bad habit, which, my bad habits were not as overpowering over me, because I have always naturally had a control of liquor that once I have gotten to a certain point in drinking liquor, it's just, I don't want more. And I could have drunk all night in the past, but the following day, I don't want to see it at all. I was never even close to, and I think it's because of the background, that monastic life that I led for 8 years, which became a part of my spirit, my very being. So, but at the core of that was the idea that, look, I embrace excellence in everything that I do. I want to do the best but not comparing myself with other people, but wanting to be my best self. And I still, I hold on. When I advise my grandchildren, my people around, say, look, try to do your best. You are taking an exam, try to come out first. But the important thing is that you be your best self. And I say this to everybody, every single human being. Each one of us is a jewel, a beautiful jewel made by God. We're made in the image and likeness of God. And God expects the best of us, but He expects your best, Jason, your best Melita, and your best Paul. He doesn't want me to be like you, the exact carbon copy of you or of your father or my mother. He wants me to be perfectly myself.
We're speaking about the power of prayer and trying to break a bad habit. How often do you ask for God's grace in seeking to overcome a bad habit? Describe a situation in which you knew that God had helped you to break a bad habit or establish a good one.
And there are many examples, where I have broken a habit that could have led to sin. Or one of the things is is the use of your eyes, especially these days with the way we dress. We dress very immodestly. It is easier to look at a woman and lust when you see all that flesh. But you know, one of the things to do is that I have done is to distract myself with the use of the rosary. I carry a rosary around with me almost everywhere I go, at all times. And when I see, I touch my rosary, and immediately that gets my mind off of what I'm seeing. There's a difference between seeing and staring. It is inevitable that when you're awake, you're going to see everything that comes before your attention.
Right. In my case, what I mentioned a little while ago, that it was through the power of prayer that I was able to stop my, excess drinking. And I was able to do it through prayer. And actually, I became a teetotaler for many, many years. I didn't touch the stuff at all. And nowadays, I enjoy a glass of wine with my meal. I sometimes enjoy a cold beer on a very hot day. But, I have one, and that's it. I don't want any more.
That's
Same
very,
thing
very
with me.
awesome.
It's that craving that I must continue, to continue drinking or whatever is no longer there. I have the power to say no, and I attribute that power that I now have to the power of God, which He gave me through prayer.
The same thing with me. Before I couldn't say no to alcohol, and when I used to drink before, I can guarantee you I won't remember it the following day. I would do a lot of foolish and stupid things that waking up the following morning, you have that worry. What did I do last night? But now, thank goodness, with the power of prayer, like what you said, I was able to overcome that. Now, with alcohol, I just look at it nowadays as, part of meals, part of fellowship. One glass of wine with a meal, that's it. Or the most, even at home, 2 drinks, that's it. And you stop yourself from going to bars or places like that.
Right. I think it's time to take a break now, so we ask our viewers to stay tuned. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to the Catholic Man's Journey. We're discussing habits and the virtuous life. Can we discuss specific ways we can help each other develop good habits? How can we help each other to develop good habits and avoid the bad habits? And I guess thereby becoming virtuous.
The best way is examples to begin with. That is the best, in a way, easiest way, but hardest on you, because maintaining a life of good habits, of virtue, is not easy. Or else, if it were easy to be virtuous, everybody would be virtuous, but it isn't. It takes effort, and it takes daily effort, and even the people who may be virtuous have to be careful. And Paul, the apostle, the great apostle, warns us about this. He says, look, once you become virtuous, be careful and don't think that you have arrived, because next thing you know, you will fall. Your presumption will get you to step out the line, and you will fall. So, along with the practice of the other virtues, you must practice and be humble. That is like a guard over all your passions, and it's a guard over your consciousness of trying to be a virtuous person. Remember that you are a creature. You're not God. You're not perfect. And you won't be free of sin, completely free of sin, and completely free of temptation until you meet me, God, face to face in heaven. So I would say that to maintain an attitude of humility always in everything, try to be humble. That is something that I need to keep working on, because, and what are some ways of, of accepting criticism is one way to practice humility, when somebody points out something, some fault that you have, accept it and say, okay, even if you don't tell the person, but afterwards try to change that behavior if you think that it is not wholesome or that could be even sinful. Change it, move away from it, and do what is good and what is right.
Well, I think that the way we can help one another as Christians to develop good habits in order to become virtuous is, as you say, by giving good example. And maybe by sitting down, discussing with other people, how one was able to do it, and by giving a personal testimony. I find that helps me a lot, to be able to tell others about, how they can help themselves by telling them how I did it, how it happened to me, with the help of God, through prayer, and by giving a personal testimony. Actually, I read somewhere where it says that a personal testimony is worth 1,000 sermons. So instead of trying to preach somebody, do this, don't do that, don't do that, you just give a personal testimony. And, people are willing to listen to a testimony as opposed to listen to a sermon.
I agree with that. I remember when you invited me 10, 11, 12 years ago, the Christ Renews His Parish. Hearing other men testify how they changed their life. That was very powerful. Hearing from other men, and in an environment where it's all men, because normally nowadays you see men. Well, the way we portray being masculine is you drink a lot, go to bars or smoke or something like that, and men don't cry. But like in a setting like that, Christ Renews His Parish, you hear other men breaking down, and being built up by Christ, by the power of the Holy Spirit. So hearing that testimony, it gave me great insight, great courage to pursue in bettering my life.
And what we're doing right now, guys, is a great way to set a good example to our men, other men, Not everybody can do radio or television, but, we are blessed to be able to do it. So I thank God for this opportunity that I have to be with you guys to talk about faith. So
I guess
great faith.
We're giving a testimony.
Yeah.
People are hearing testimonies.
That's right.
Okay, shall we go on to the next question? Identify the good and bad habits we Belizeans have as a society. How do they impact society generally?
They impact society indeed. Well,
here in Belize,
the question about is about Americans, but Belizeans, we have imitated many of the mistakes of our great neighbor, powerful neighbor to the north, Americans.
No, but we're talking about Belizeans.
Okay, but we imitate them. The point is that we are imitating. The Americans describe everything as sexy. Your dress is sexy, your pants is sexy, your look is sexy. I think we got to encourage our people to get away from that. Let us be ourselves, let us be Belizean, let us hold on to the values that we need to hold on to. Bible values, scriptural values. One of the the things that we are being encouraged, we have been encouraged to do, and even part of our educational culture. Don't discipline the child physically. Corporal punishment is out. That's from up north and from Europe. We have to do what we need to do, and hopefully the rest of the world, the powerful world, will learn by sad experience that if you don't discipline the child, you spoil the child. That's a big part of our problem in Belize right now. We're spoiling our children because we don't discipline them, and sometimes even using the whip. But this is a big problem for us because it's the legal culture in the schools is not to use physical punishment against the children, which I think is a big cultural, civilizational mistake. I think that now and again, it is good to discipline a child physically when he or she deserves, not cruelly. Cruelty is never acceptable, but a little physical pain, I think, teaches a lesson that words don't teach. Anyhow,
well, for me, a bad habit that we have. I'm sorry to bring back alcohol into the picture again. It's my example because I've struggled with it for a very long time. You know, I had a really difficult time giving up alcohol. You know, and I think one of the bad habits is, you know, you go to when you go to happy hour or something like that, that you feel like you're stressed and that I deserve to be happy, you know, to relieve my stress. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, they relieve their stress by resorting to alcohol. I was one of that. You know, that's a bad habit, going to happy hour, because when you go there, it's happy hour. It's there's a time limit in the discount of the alcohol, so you tend to consume more, right? You tend to hurry up. Happy hour is almost done, or you hear it nowadays in some people. You know, it's just Thursday, but they call it Thirsty Thursday. You know, and you know, Thirsty Thursday we have to drink. So.
Well, actually, it's trying to think of generally the Belizean society. I think that our good habits generally is that we believe in God. I think that most people go to church, if not every Sunday, at least from time to time.
Christmas and yes. Easter.
And we were taught, our school system was provided by the church. They're the ones that started the school system in Belize. And so we've been inculcated with, you know, what's good, what's virtuous, what's right, what's wrong. And so I think that the large percentage of our Belizean population try to adhere to some of these things. Obviously, there's, you know, a lot of people have a lot of bad habits and are not very virtuous, but I guess like everything else, there's good and bad everywhere. And what I think in Belizean society that is bad is that I think that Belizeans are too promiscuous generally. And, you know, they have a lot of children not living with the father and mother. You know, so because of the promiscuity, there's a lot of unwed mothers, and so the children do not have a proper home. They do not have a mother and father. Usually they just have a mother, or sometimes worse than that, maybe a granny. And of course that impacts society in a detrimental way. And that's generally, that's I don't know if I'm right, but that's the feeling that I have.
Oh, I think you're very right, you're most right. Another thing that we have inherited from Europe and America is this business of politically correct. I think that we, mostly Christian people, we have to grow into the spirit where we can not agree with somebody, but yet respect that person. Get rid of the hate, get rid of the passionate insistence that only my way is right, but accept other people for what they are. If we do that, we won't need politically correct. Politically correct actually is detrimental to our faith, because part of this, a spin-off is, oh, I cannot tell you about my faith at all. It's impolite. It's hateful. Man, Jesus Christ commanded us, Christians, to spread the good news. You see, but we must do so calmly, gently, politely, and with charity. So I think it's always good to not be angry, not be critical of other people. My strategy now, my behavior now with other Christians is to tell them, right, I do not discuss or argue about doctrine. Do you love Jesus? You do? So do I. Let's love one another. That's my attitude towards Christians. And I think it would probably be so if I encountered Muslims. I'd want it to be that way too. Look, you're a son of Abraham, so am I. Let us love God and respect one another and respect all of human life.
And I think on that note, it's a good note on which we can end our program today. So we invite our listeners to tune in next week for another program on the Catholic man's journey. Goodbye.